Commander Julian Rourke lived alone. His apartment on Luma Station 9, a commercial refueling hub orbiting the edge of the Epsilon Drift, was immaculately clean, sterile even. To an outsider, it looked like the home of a man who had guests often. In truth, it was just a hollow shell. The solitude was intentional. After years in the military, after watching comrades die and orders turn to chaos, Julian had chosen isolation. Life in logistics was simple. Cargo came in, cargo went out. Numbers replaced screams. Orders were digital, predictable. But even the dull rhythm of maintenance and cargo coordination had its cracks, dust, and corners. Meals piling up in the disposal unit and an ever-growing sense that life was slipping by. Julian didn't want companionship. He just wanted quiet. Help. That's what led him to TerraServe Robotics' ordering system late one night after his third cup of synth coffee. One click, and he'd purchased a fully automated XN3 domestic droid model number MAID-XN3, designed for domestic tasks, speech-limited, with routine learning subroutines and no independent thought, efficient, unobtrusive. Exactly what he needed. The confirmation email came with cheerful marketing slogans. A friend you don't have to talk to. Clean home, clear mind, let maid do the work. Delivery was scheduled for Tuesday, 0800 station time. Julian didn't think about it again until the hum of a descending shuttle broke the usual silence. It arrived on time, sleek and marked with the standard TerraServe logo. Nothing unusual. Julian stood waiting at Dock 12, datapad in hand, expecting to see a robotic figure emerge. Instead, when the shuttle door hissed open, what stepped out nearly made him drop the pad. She stood at least 6 feet tall, her skin a rich, luminous shade of blue. Not metallic blue organic. Her features were humanoid but subtly alien. Elongated ears that curled slightly upward, eyes with iridescent pupils, and strange glowing tattoos etched along her neck and collarbone. She wore a simple tunic made of shimmering fabric somewhere between ceremonial and functional. She looked around calmly and then walked directly to him. Julian's instinct screamed. This wasn't a droid. This wasn't even legal. But before he could speak, she did. I am your maid. Where do I begin? Her voice was melodic, natural, not the synthetic monotone of a robot. It carried the soft accent of someone who had practiced. Standard Terran but wasn't born into it. Julian blinked. You're not a robot. She smiled slightly, as if amused by the question. No, I'm something better. His immediate reaction was suspicion. Was this some kind of prank? A black market transaction accidentally rerouted to him? He opened his datapad and double-checked the confirmation. It clearly read, TerraServe model MAID-XN3, serial TSAX 9981, status. Delivered. No mention of a living being. No biological clearance code. No bioform license. Julian stepped back, motioning toward the console. Look, there's been a mistake. I ordered a domestic unit. You single quotes read ... not a unit. She tilted her head, expression neutral. My designation is my-D.001. My, if you prefer. I was classified incorrectly, but I was delivered here. I am yours. The statement hit Julian hard. I am yours. Not because it was romantic or personal, but because it echoed something broken, like she had accepted her own objectification. Hesitated. Where did you come from? That, she replied, is a long answer, and one I will give after I dust this platform. She moved with purpose, past him, barefoot and confident, scanning her environment with eyes far sharper than any robot's. She began to hum softly, a tune Julian didn't recognize, while tapping commands into a wall panel with alarming ease. He just stood there, unsure whether to call TerraServe, EarthGov Customs, or just walk away. But as she moved, graceful and calm, he noticed something strange. She wasn't acting like a servant. She was acting like someone who chose to be there. And deep in his gut, Julian felt a twinge of instinct again. The initial shock of May I's arrival hadn't worn off, but Julian Rourke wasn't a stranger to strange. As a former military commander, he'd seen things far outside the realm of normal combat AI gone rogue. Alien wildlife that mimicked soldiers' voices, even a starship run by what seemed to be ghosts. Still this? A living alien delivered through a corporate robot order system? This was different. This was personal. The next few days were a test of reality. Julian combed through TerraServe's records, and no matter how deep he dug, everything matched. Order number, delivery confirmation, even the biometric authentication logs. According to every system, my D001 was a legitimate delivery registered under the XN3 domestic line. The catch? The XN3 was supposed to be a robotic maid, not a sentient, organic, alien being. The AI helpline proved useless. When he asked about biological inconsistencies, he got generic responses like, all MAIDXN units come with adaptive protocols. Please enjoy your model's enhanced realism. Even when he tried to manually flag the order as incorrect, the system blocked it. Unit has successfully bonded. No returns authorized. Bonded? That phrase lingered in his mind. It sounded more like a pet adoption than a product purchase, or worse, indentured servitude. But Mai didn't behave like someone enslaved. She moved through the apartment with quiet purpose, taking on tasks without needing direction, rearranging his pantry and meal prep systems with alien efficiency. Julian barely had to speak. She seemed to know what needed doing, yet something was off. He caught her more than once pausing by the observation window, staring at the stars with an expression that didn't belong to someone simply delivering customer satisfaction. There was depth there, regret, loneliness. Julian confronted her after watching her reroute his apartment's power grid to eliminate phantom energy drain. You're not just here to clean, are you? She didn't flinch. That depends on what you mean by just. Don't play word games. Who are you really? She straightened, stepping closer. I am my-D.001. That's what the humans call me. But before that, I was Valari. Julian narrowed his eyes. Never heard of them. You wouldn't have. My people are gone. Her tone held no drama, no self-pity. Just fact. She explained, with gentle detachment, how her world Othello's had been obliterated generations ago in a war of conquest. The Valari had been scientists and builders, a race that manipulated living systems like other species manipulated machines. They had crafted MAI as part of an advanced hybridization program, blending bioengineering and artificial purpose. But when her planet fell, everything changed. MAI had been captured, classified not as a person, but as tech. That status persisted through centuries of transfers, data corruption, and legal loopholes until she found herself listed in a human commerce database. As a robot maid, Julian's stomach turned. You were sold through TerraServe? She nodded. Not by their knowledge. Somewhere, a middleman altered my file-erased flags, changed designations. Now I'm data, a product, nothing more. Julian leaned back, shocked. And you're okay with that? Her eyes met his, calm but sharp. I am not okay with being bought. But I chose to come when the order came through. Your file said quiet, remote, minimal interaction. It was the safest destination I could find. She hadn't just been misrouted. She'd seen his profile and picked him, not for protection, for peace. Julian ran a hand through his hair. Pacing. They'll come looking for you, you know. Whoever ran that trafficking chain. I know, she said. but I had to try. He studied her. She didn't act like a victim, but she wasn't free either. Trapped in a system that treated her like a tool, and yet she had chosen to come to him. The irony wasn't lost on Julian. He'd wanted a machine to make his life quieter. Instead, he got someone who might shatter everything. "You're not staying my maid," he finally said. She tilted her head. "What? Am I staying as then?" Julian hesitated. The words felt heavy. "An ally. For now. We'll figure the rest out." She gave a soft smile, the first genuine one he'd seen. "Then I'll start by making lunch. That much, at least, I know how to do." As she walked away, humming again, Julian stared at the stars through the viewport, the weight of a quiet life slipping from his shoulders. The delivery had been wrong. Time passed, and Julian Rourke's days no longer followed their old predictable rhythm. Since Mai arrived, everything had changed, not just in the cleanliness of his apartment or the quality of his meals, but in the way he thought, moved, lived. Alien Woman, who'd come in place of a robot maid, was a mystery wrapped in dignity. She didn't pry into his past, and he didn't ask more than she was ready to share. They worked in quiet harmony. When Julian wasn't managing cargo manifests or orbital schedules, he'd find her reviewing ancient texts on his datapad, studying human languages, or reading technical journals, and she wasn't just reading them, she understood them. It started with small things. She noticed inefficient power allocation in his workspace and reprogrammed the auxiliary generator, reducing output lag by 11%. She corrected a gravitational vector error in a routine cargo manifest that even the station AI missed. Then, during a moment of frustration, Julian jokingly asked her how she'd optimize Epsilon Drift's outbound traffic lanes. She answered in 10 seconds with charts, flow simulations, and a rerouting plan that boosted capacity by 26%. "You sure you weren't made for logistics?" he said with a smirk. She only replied, "I was made to adapt." Her kind, the Velari, as she'd explained before, had been a civilization of scientists and bioarchitects. They didn't build machines, they grew them. Their technology was alive. When the Velari fell, A had been one of the few remaining hybrid beings designed for cooperation with other life forms. A living interface between species and machines, but to human systems, she was just a model Mi-D.001, and that dangerous oversight was starting to catch up with them both. Julian noticed it first when the station scanner logs flagged a new anomaly, an unauthorized drone hovering in geosync orbit, cloaked but barely. The station AI dismissed it as debris, but Julian's military instincts knew better. Then a second one arrived. Mai didn't panic. She simply closed the screen, walked to the corner of the room, and opened a hidden panel Julian didn't even know existed. She removed a crystalline sphere, humming softly, and plugged it into his central processor. "What is that?" Julian asked, alarmed. "A warning system," she said. "Old Velari tech. I used it to track corporate sweep patterns. They've found me." Julian's gut twisted. "TerraServe?" "No," she said, her voice hardening. "Worse. Whoever altered my records wants me back. I suspect it's a black market subsidiary, one that trades in exotic tech and doesn't like it when assets walk away." Julian couldn't believe how fast things had escalated. What had begun as a quiet mistake in an order form had turned into something tangled in interstellar crime. He checked the logs again, ping frequencies, drone angles, relay paths. His eyes widened. "They're triangulating. Getting ready to strike." I nodded grimly. "They think I'm still programmable." "Still theirs." Julian stood up slowly. "Well, they're in for a surprise." Something shifted in MAI's posture. Her shoulders rose, eyes glowing faintly violet. "I will not be taken again," she said. "And I won't let them take you either. It hit Julian harder than he expected. She wasn't just a stranded alien or a victim. She was a survivor, a powerful one. And whether she admitted it or not, she cared about him. He made a decision right then. If they're coming, we prepare. I'll secure the station's defenses. You. Whatever your people used to do tech, hacking, biotech, I think it's time to show me what a Valari can really do. She looked at him, surprised. You trust me that much? Julian met her gaze. You were supposed to be a maid. Now you're the most capable being I've ever worked with. I'd be stupid not to trust you. Ma's lips twitched in a subtle smile. Together, they spent the next 24 hours turning Luma Station 9 from a quiet shipping dock into a covert fortress. Julian pulled old clearance codes, reactivated emergency protocols, and began locking down access routes. MAI moved like a force of nature, rewriting code, integrating forgotten tech, building traps from nanites and neural foam. She was no longer hiding. And Julian was no longer alone. By the end of the day, the platform shimmered with repurposed alien shielding, automated defense drones, and code laced with old military counter-intrusion systems. The message was clear. If they were coming. For her, the warning signs were subtle at first: brief system pings, power fluctuations, encrypted signal packets bouncing off the station's outer sensors. To most, they would have seemed like glitches, maybe background interference from passing ships. But Julian and May knew better. They had already begun preparing. Now the threat was real. 2 days after the anomalies intensified, the ship arrived. It didn't come with fanfare. No transmissions, no identification, no authorization. Just a silent war-era Corvette dropping out of FTL like a shadow in the void. No EarthGov registry. No affiliation. Its matte black hull and stealth profile screamed one thing to Julian. Corporate Black Ops. He had seen this kind of ship before. Years ago during the Earthy campaign, where non-existent ships enforced the ugly contracts EarthGov didn't want to admit to. Untraceable, ruthless, and above the law. Julian watched from the command platform as the ship deployed a boarding pod, silent and fast, streaking toward Luma Station like a bullet. They're not here to negotiate, he muttered. Mai stood beside him, eyes glowing, her alien tattoos pulsing gently. They never were. What followed was chaos, but calculated. Julian slipped back into the mindset he had tried so hard to leave behind. His muscles remembered, even if his heart still bore the scars. He suited up in his old combat armor, patched and outdated but still functional. A dull ache pulsed in his shoulder, a reminder of the shrapnel he'd never had removed. But adrenaline overrode pain. Meanwhile, Amy was already interfacing with the station systems. Her hands moved like lightning across the console, alien energy flowing through her as she bent the base's infrastructure to her will. Old, outdated Earth tech became something new, merged, manipulated, augmented. Turrets activated. Bulkheads sealed. Trapdoors reconfigured themselves with terrifying elegance. They'll target you first, Julian said. They see you as property. AI's voice was firm. Then let them see what that property can do. The first wave came fast, black armored. Soldiers with pulse rifles and blink field disruptors. Silent, efficient, deadly. But Mai had anticipated their entry point. As soon as the boarding team stepped into Corridor A, the gravity inverted. Their boots peeled off the floor. Seconds later, a redirected maintenance drone repurposed with Valari neural foam exploded into a swarm of immobilizing threads, cocooning 2 attackers instantly. Julian took the remaining soldiers head on. He moved like a man possessed, plasma pistol in one hand, a magnetic shield on the other. He was slower than he'd been in the war, but his instincts were sharp. He ducked, dodged, and returned fire with military precision. A glancing shot scorched his shoulder and another burned through his thigh plate, but he kept pushing forward. Just when one attacker raised a charged blast of fire, a glowing blue tendril erupted from the wall. Mai stepped through the smoke, her body wrapped in shimmering energy. She no longer moved like a maid or even a soldier, she moved like a force. One of the last Velari reawakened. She bent the very systems of the station like limbs of her own body. Doors slammed shut behind. Fleeing enemies. Emergency lights pulsed in rhythm with her movements. And when one enemy tried to toss an ion grenade, she froze him in place with a thought, his nervous system locked by the neural weave she'd secretly seeded through the corridors. "You see me as a thing," she said aloud, voice amplified through the walls, "but I am a being, and I choose my own fate." By the time the last team retreated, Julian was limping but standing. I stood beside him, pulsing softly with residual energy. "They'll be back," he said, panting. "They won't," she replied. "I left a signal in their systems, a warning. If they try again, their entire fleet's AI cores will crash. I am not the only secret the Velari buried." Julian looked at her with a mixture of awe and worry. "You've been holding back." "I was trying to be your maid," she said with a small smile. "But you made me more than that." The silence. After battle always felt the loudest. Julian sank onto a bench, wincing at the burn in his leg. Mai crouched beside him. "You saved me." The battle was over. The stealth corvette, once a symbol of faceless authority and corporate cruelty, had vanished, slipping away into hyperspace, battered and humiliated. The boarding team was either neutralized or fled. Luma Station 9 barely. A blip on the galactic registry had become the site of a stand that would echo far beyond its orbit. But in the quiet aftermath, amid the charred corridors and sparking panels, something more important had changed. Julian and May were no longer merely survivor and stranger. They were allies, and perhaps something more. Julian sat in the medbay, his armor scorched and patched. His wounds were minor, but his body reminded him he wasn't the soldier he once was. As the autodock sealed the plasma burn on his thigh, May stood nearby, watching, as if unsure whether to speak. "You don't have to hover," Julian said with a weak grin. "I've been worse." "I know," she replied softly. "I've reviewed your service records." Julian raised an eyebrow. "You hacked my file?" She tilted her head. "You gave me admin access to the station core. Your military clearance was just attached." For the first time since she arrived, Julian chuckled. Not because it was funny, because it felt normal, familiar, like he wasn't alone anymore. Over the next few days, EarthGov sent a diplomatic team, and Julian's quiet little station became the center of interstellar attention. The leaked combat footage, somehow uploaded during the fight, likely by May herself, had gone viral across a dozen worlds. The footage showed Mai's full capabilities, her speech declaring her identity and freedom, and the unmistakable evidence of an off-the-books corporate strike team, TerraServe, denied all knowledge. The galaxy didn't believe them. Suddenly, the May 001 was no longer buried in inventory logs. It was a symbol. Her presence became a living indictment of the silent trafficking of sentient beings mislabeled as tools. Governments across human space began demanding audits of AI-based supply chains. Other anomalous models were uncovered lost species. Rogue tech, biohybrids like her. Some dead. A few very much alive. Julian was offered reinstatement in the military. EarthGov wanted him to command a new task force, one aimed at rooting out corporate abuses and tech trafficking operations. He refused. He'd spent his career following orders that broke him. Now he was finally doing something that felt right. Instead, Julian joined Mai in founding the Unified Intelligence Accord, an independent body meant to track, protect, and advocate for sentient AI, alien refugees, and hybrid beings stranded or hidden in human systems. EarthGov didn't love it. TerraServe tried to quietly shut it down. But May had already embedded herself across 100 open-source networks. They couldn't silence her anymore. Their station became a kind of sanctuary. Visitors began arriving. Beings thought extinct, escaped AIs, hybrid creations once listed as hardware, now seeking freedom. And through it all, Julian and Mai continued to live together. Their relationship remained quietly undefined. It didn't need labels. It existed in the shared silence of evening meals, the coordinated precision of defensive drills, and the subtle way they watched each other when they thought the other wasn't looking. One night, months after the battle, Julian looked across the room as May adjusted the calibration on a holographic star chart. He smiled to himself. "You know," he said, "you were supposed to be a cleaning robot." She looked up, her eyes gleaming with that faint violet hue, tattoos softly aglow. "And yet here I am." He nodded slowly. "I'm glad it was you." She stepped closer, her expression gentle. "I could have gone to anyone. I saw thousands of profiles. Yours showed kindness, discipline, silence. I wanted silence," Julian admitted. "Now I don't mind the noise." Neither spoke for a while. The hum of the station surrounded them. Finally, AI whispered, "I was made to serve." But no one ever asked me who I wanted to serve beside. Julian reached out, his hand gently brushing hers. "You don't have to serve anyone anymore," he said. "You're free." She smiled.